our accountant had just said, if I were you guys, close the door. You're not making any money. You're giving away equipment. You're not doing well. The numbers don't make sense. And so it's time for you guys to make that change. And that's when I said, holy smokes, I've made this my career and it's not going well. And at that point, that's when I said to my dad, we have to make a change.
Before we get into this week's episode of the Calgary Sessions, I want to quickly talk about the new studio that we're filming in. It's called Offset Studios. It's a 3,000 square foot facility with 4 unique sets inside of it. We produce podcasts, corporate talking heads, fireside chats. We also do headshots, product shots. If you want to learn more about it, you can check out offsetstudios.ca. Now, let's get into the show. Welcome to the Calgary Sessions. This is episode number 194. I'm your host, Jeff Humphreys. Before I get into it, if you like the show, please subscribe to it. I would appreciate it. Today's guest, Mr. Daniel Plenzik, did this intro. If you don't know who that man is, he owns one of the owners of Bridgeland Distillery. Been on the podcast, spectacular dude. He's like, do you know this guy? I'm like, never heard of him. So did the intro, and so here we are. So please name and who you are.
My name is Peter Izzo. And I am the president of Cappuccino King, father, husband, entrepreneur, son to immigrant children, or immigrant parents. So what am I saying there? Yeah.
And before we got on camera, you're asking like, you know, how do you get guests and all the rest of it? This is the perfect case study, right? Daniel, Tony Spallanzini introduced me to Daniel. I had Daniel on the show. He was like, well, you know, just a spectacular, big energy.
Always laughing. Oh, my God.
Always laughing. And wants to help and is so giving. Like, you wheel into a shop and he's just like, you want this? You want this? I'm like, man, I'm like, it's 11. I can't drink. Like, just, and and then he says, and he just starts offering up his network. You need to talk to this guy. You need to talk to this person. And that's how this whole show works. And that's why you're here. So it's just, it's the secret behind this show.
That's Calgary.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody knows everyone. We've always said it. It's 3 degrees of separation. It's I met Daniel when he was opening up Bridgeland, and it's funny because we have very similar stories in the communities that they were, but he's a little bit younger than I am. So I was much earlier than he was, but yeah, and now today it's quite funny because I work out with him in the gym every morning with his brother.
Amazing. It's like,
and the funny thing is we get there and then the jokes start going off. First thing, that's our warm up in the morning is the jokes that start happening, and eventually in time it's like, okay, I got to do a workout here. Okay, you got to leave and I got to start. Yeah, so it's pretty good.
The hour workout is like an hour and 45 with the warm up jokes.
He doesn't. I mean, like, yeah, he doesn't stop. He is. You know, he's in the gym. They're there. Him and his brother are there at 5.
Yeah.
And they're working out. And then I get there at 6 because I'm not doing 5. I'm not there yet. And I'm getting in, he's getting out. And we have our 15-minute bantering back and forth. And, hey, I've got this. And what happened and what's going on. And so we go back and forth on a regular basis. And then, and then it's like, okay, I got to go now.
Okay, yeah. Obviously we both appreciate him because he's such a good dude.
Yeah.
You've seen a few of these, so you kind of know what the shtick is. So take this thing back. Where you grew up, how you grew up, parents, siblings, job, school, all the weird things to where you are today. And this will be a fun
convoluted one. This is it. We're going. You got 2 hours. We're going to take this forever.
All of it.
So born and raised in Calgary. Born at the General Hospital. Grew up in Victoria Park. That was very cool. We lived there till I was 13. Great community, very diversified with the culture. You had Portuguese, you had Greeks, Italians, you had indigenous people, you had just every culture that you can think of down there because that was the hood. If you weren't making money and you were okay, you lived in Bridgeland. And if you made a little bit more money, you got to live at the top of the hill in Renfrew. So we lived in Victoria Park. So that was, I think, one of the greatest times of my life ever. I think I take that back, and I wouldn't change it for the world. I mean, that was the old Bronx kind of feel. You would shut down the entire block with the constant barricades, and you would get in there and you'd play street hockey in the corner, and you'd be, eating spits outside the Portuguese food store that was there, and you'd be till late at night, and mom would be screaming on the deck, "Get inside, you got to go to bed." And it's like, but we had a couple of friends that were there that I grew up with that were good people. And then my parents decided when I was 13, it was the dirty 80s and it was time to move on. And my parents were always entrepreneur people. And so at the time, Dad had a couple of businesses. We had the cappuccino business. That was the importing business. So my dad started, when he first came to Calgary, he started a social club for Italian people to gather. And it was the hangout for all of the European people because you could play cards, you could have a snack, you can have an Italian vibe. Kids had the arcade where they would go, and that was in Renfrew. And then we eventually moved down into Bridgeland. And then,
was that the OG place?
Yeah, it would have been the OG. Back in the day, it was called Napoli Sports Club. And it was, it's crazy because I was just talking about this the other day. So my dad did back in that time is immigrants were not allowed to congregate more than 2 people because you were conspiring. That was a city bylaw in the late 60s up to the late 70s, early 70s. And so when my dad opened up this, my dad was always an entrepreneur. So my dad opened up this place and decided to call it Napoli Sports Club because that's where he came from. And so this strip mall had 4 bays. And the first bay was he turned it into a cafe where, wives and the children could sit around and have a panino, a chinotto, or have some Italian cultural stuff that we would do. Yep. And then in the room next door, it had where you could play cards, and that you could, and the Italians love to play their scopa and all that fancy stuff. So Dad had that. And then in the third bay, it was an arcade. And it was where you could play pool, you can play arcade games and foosball, and it was the thing. It was the hangout. It was the area that everybody was going. And then the final bay was a laundromat that my dad had left there and just continued to let it be a laundromat for the community. And so opportunity came at the time, and Dad, again, always an entrepreneur looking for opportunities where there was an opportunity to buy a building down in Bridgeland to take our sports club and move it out of there, and then moved on and moved down into Bridgeland. Now, the reason for it was there was a lot of flack going on because at the time, a lot of people didn't understand our culture in the early 70s. And so when Italians were gathering, that many Italians and people from the community, there must be some mob connection here, So there was constant raids or constant, handering, with my dad with this kind of a business going on. So my dad was just like, okay, I can't deal with this anymore. So he then moved down into Bridgeland. We opened up, he had a cappuccino bar there, and started the business that we have today, which is the Cappuccino King.
When you're a youngster, you're kind of around that. As you're telling the story, what I'm always up to is I'm like painting a picture in my head of what it looks like. But that first place with like the 4 bays, was it like your childhood memories of those 4 bays? Like I'm sure they're,
I'll paint you a picture.
Perfect.
So you walked in, so it was one big strip mall with a bunch of windows, right? Because it was a strip mall. And in between each of the strip mall, each bay had a wall dividing it. And the Italians, they love their arches. So my dad had to cut arches in these walls so that you can get from one room, and made the 3 rooms into one, each individual of its own pocket. So when you walked into the one room, you walked into this little gazebo kind of idea where you walked in, it was like brick paneling.
Classic.
that you could walk in, and then you had these booths that were red leathered with wood.
Amazing.
and wood tables kind of idea, and there were benches. kind of idea, and a couple of round tables and ashtrays everywhere, because that was my job. I had to clean the ashtrays from everybody but smoking. Today, that would be like your child abuse for sure.
like all
There
the
was a
rules.
haze. We were talking about smoke.
Amazing.
Oh my God. So yeah, and then my dad had this bar that was a leather plaid, buttoned, angled with red, with the Italian stripes, red, white, and green. And then he had another bench where he had the slushy machine for gelato and quinoto and yeah, granita. And then my mom was in the back, and she would make paninos and sandwiches, and he would get a lot of his suppliers that would come from Toronto, and they would always be selling him the big jars of the melanzane and the Italian stuff to put on a sandwich, right? And then you had, once you got out, and then there was a jukebox that everybody loved. The little jukebox was there for the ladies that could sit down and listen to some music. And then you walked into the other room, and it was just this one big hall with white tile and columns, and you had just maybe about a dozen red round tables with 4 or 5 chairs and a little stand on next to it for the ashtray, and where they could put their drink because they'd be playing cards, right? And so you'd have that room, and then another arch to go into the next room, and then that was where it was a little arcade area where you could, the kids could run there. Dad give me some money while his dad was playing cards. Mom would be in the front talking to her girlfriends, and so it was this
Crazy.
Yeah, it was a great place. And then because it had the arcade, you had a lot of people from within the community that would all gather there. So it's quite funny because I have friends today that I don't remember, but they were like, we always hung out at your dad's place. And we always hung out at Napoli Sports Club, and we always used to be there. And so when you look back and you go back to the photos, you're like, wow, crazy.
When you're that age, when you're just surrounded by that kind of energy, family, community, like what I'm wondering is like, is your mom and dad like working all the time? Is your home life at that place, or is it like
It is.
Everything is just like when
Yeah.
you say when your dad, I'm guessing when your dad's an entrepreneur in that era, it's like one gear, just work.
Yeah, that's all you know.
Yeah.
Elbows up, ass up, head down,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, you're right. Because at the time, so I'll take it back. When I was living in Victoria Park, Dad was working when they immigrated. Dad was working for the city of Calgary for a little bit and working at the New Noble Hotel, which was the place to be in Calgary, which is now Hotel Arts.
No way.
Yeah, so it's Hotel Arts. Back in the day, it was the place to be at all times, but you also risked your life because it was always treacherous. There was always fights. It was always crazy. So Dad was a bartender there, and it wasn't that far away from our house. So right now, where the new arena is going to be built, my 2 houses where I lived they were leveled years ago, but the Portuguese food store was right across the street, and then they just took that down recently, and then they'll put it back up, and they're going to make a cafe out of it.
Cool.
So that's really quite cool. So we lived in Victoria Park, and I went to St. Anne's as a school. Mom worked at Littledale, which was across the street from St. Anne's. So we used to go to school there, but Mom worked the night shift so that she could always be home for us for the evening or for the day. She worked when we got home, and they were always working. And then once my dad opened up Napoli Sports Club, once we were done school, Dad or Mom would come and pick us up, and we'd go straight to that area. And then eventually in time, I went to St. Angela's down in Bridgeland because it was just below Renfrew for us to be able to go to school there so that I could come to go. And then Dad opened up the cafe in Bridgeland. And again, St. Angela's was the place that I could go to. That was the school down there in Bridgeland at the time.
Brothers and sisters? Are you siblings?
I have a sister, an older sister as well. Yeah.
I have some Italian blood in me. My mom's maiden name is Bombadiri.
Okay.
So it's like, the Italian culture is like close to home. Like, I'm not saying I'm like, right beside it, but like, I really appreciate the Italian culture. That like, that family, that work, it's family, food, and just community. And it's just this like, it feels like this classic early story of Calgary Italians.
It is. Yeah, the history of us being young and the families that were gathering, always when we got together, it was meaningful.
Yeah.
It was incredible, right?
Yeah.
When my dad opened up the cafe and the business down in Bridgeland, and this is where the turning point comes in. My dad had the coffee shop and the cafe, but then the building across the street came up for sale, and that's when my dad opened up La Dolce Vita.
Wait. What year is this?
This has got to be late 70s, early 80s. Yeah,
Dolce
late
Vita.
70s. Late 70s, because we had the cafe and the whole way that, and again, this is where I will never understand, the kahunas that the immigrants had back in the day. Not even close.
Yeah.
And here's the story. Dad's in the cafe, selling, doing his thing, doing coffees. And the guy that owned the building across the street was an insurance broker. And he had the lower bay, but wasn't renting the top part. He just had the lower bay and he was selling insurance. But he was getting divorced. And him and my dad having a coffee, and my dad was, if you ever met my dad, some people called him Sammy Davis Jr. because he was this short little guy, a lot of spark, a lot of spontaneity. People used to think, oh my God, there's a giant behind that room. And then Vince, little guy, would come back around the corner and be like, who is this guy? And he had the gold chain.
Amazing.
He had, and you got to think that my dad always wore a suit. Always. Construction, holidays, it was a suit all the time. And if it was got a little bit not a suit, it would be an opened, floral shirt with a nice blazer jacket on top. God, it would be like, oh my God, my dad was like that his whole life. Okay. So he's in his cafe, and you can see this, velour carpet on the floor, the shelving made out of steel, and they're sitting down, and he's got his cafe, and the guy says to my dad, I got to sell my building. I'm in trouble. And my dad's like, what are you talking about? And he's like, they get into the long story. And that's when my dad says, you know what? Hang on for a second. Maybe I'll buy it. My dad literally that morning ran off to the bank down to the bottom of, down in Bridgeland. And if you remember, there was the TD Bank right on the corner across the street from the car wash. So, interest rates at an all-time high. An immigrant, and my dad says, I'm going to buy the building. And he buys it. Moves the guy upstairs to be the insurance guy upstairs, and then he opened up La Dolce Vita.
When you talk about the courage, the balls it takes to do that, I can't imagine being an immigrant, what that journey's like, period.
Yeah.
But then to come here, no safety net, no family backdrop to you make a bad decision, they're going to hold, do you imagine? Any of that in today's world, it's just holy fuck.
I don't think I could ever. I think about it every day. How many people that get up from where they live and feel comfortable and move on to somewhere where it's a totally new beginning. So you have to look at it as either you were meant to do that, or the times have been so bad that you have no choice but to.
Yeah.
And we've been blessed every day to be able to say to yourself, I don't have those choices.
Yeah.
I used to have arguments with my dad on a regular basis. And it was, our time is a little bit more different than their time. Yes, they struggled and they had a hard time. But there was a lot more opportunity, I think. And so if something went wrong, and I could be wrong. If you had something that went wrong, you had still the opportunity to try something else.
Right.
Because there were so many opportunities, right? It wasn't overthought. You could do things. And you always had family support that could help you and back you up. Today, I think that time is different. I mean, everything that anybody is doing is at a next level, and it has to be superior than what you can do. And it's so much, the competition is greater, right?
Yeah.
But you're right. When you think about it at 18, 22%, that's crazy.
Crazy.
Like I said, I just don't know how he did it. And again, like I said, he opened up the restaurant, and then that's where my life had taken a turn with the way that things went about. Because once Dad had the cafe, you went to school and you hung out at the cafe because Mom's working, Dad's working, they're both working the cafe. You're sitting on a chair, you're waiting, you're doing your homework in the back, you're having a sandwich in the back because that's where she's making for everybody else. And so you're doing that. And then you're meeting the people in the community that live in Bridgeland. So you're playing street hockey and you're playing all that. But when it's time, like, and again, stories that today would be like abuse or something. I used to always get hurt. Stitches like on a regular basis from cutting myself and breaking things. And I used to walk to the general hospital by myself. Just walk in and they'd be like, Peter, you're here again. And I'm like, yeah, I cut myself. And she'd be like, okay, you know where to go in the back. So you'd walk all the way to the back and you'd get a few stitches and you'd leave and you'd walk out of the hospital. It was... Now you're filling out forms, you're waiting 10 hours, but back in the day it was like you just walked in, what happened now? I was skateboarding and I cut myself and I fell and I had a bottle in my hand. Or I used to go to the general hospital because they had the cafeteria in the basement. And so I used to go to the general hospital and eat the cafeteria food because it was on sale, or they'd have onion rings and you weren't getting that. That was white food. Yep. You're getting an Italian panino that's leaking and mortadella prosciutto. For us, it was like,
again,
really?
Again?
Come on, Mom. Yeah. With a little bit of rapini in it kind of idea. So it was like, oh, no, I don't want to be doing that. Those are great stories. But once Dad opened up the restaurant, Mom worked in the kitchen with the executive chef that my dad had brought in from Montreal. And so my life was school and then straight to the restaurant. And then so as entrepreneurial parents, they'll take advantage of everything that they possibly can. And that means if they can, my sister would be hostess. I would be working the dish pit or peeling potatoes or doing what we could. Friday, Saturday nights, that's where you were. You were there, right? And so you did that. So your life was basically school, work environment, because that's what they were doing, right?
When you're that age and that's your world, did you look around and see your friends? Was there also other families was there other friends that had family businesses and it was just everyone's working, or did you feel like you were either missing something or did you feel like you were just, this is the way it is?
I think by the time that we hit Bridgeland and we were working in Bridgeland and we were doing most of my life in Bridgeland, Victoria Park wasn't as much. There was the odd place when the restaurant was closed on the weekend, so we'd finish school. So Saturday and Sunday would be a day off, and then Saturday you had most of the morning until 4:00 because the restaurant had to open. Mom would have to go prep, and so you got some time within the community. Yeah. But when you spent most of the day in Bridgeland, there were other community members and other people, Italian people that had their businesses. Like there was the Caracciolo's that had the Italian store that they had. And so Dom and his family were there. And so we all kind of knew each other and everybody was kind of entrepreneurial. There were some times where we would go to some of our friends that were in the community that they had chores. And I'm just like, chores? What are chores? I mean, we were told to do with things. You got chores? And I'm like, oh, okay. You're going to be grounded? What's that? You know what I mean? So.
As a youngster, like elementary, junior high, was it family, community? Was there sports? Was it just family, community, work? Like, was it kind of?
Yeah, it was work. The only sports that I started playing, I never played hockey. I wanted to play hockey, but my parents were never committed to me playing hockey. I mean, I remember going to some friends that were able to allow me to, go and play hockey with them and try out, but I never did play with a team. I played it, playing shinny eventually in time and playing street hockey, and that was something that we did. But when it came to structural sports, it only came to me during, school activity, right? Yeah. And so 13, maybe even 12, 13, it got ugly here. That's when the National Energy Board came in, and that's when everything went to
early
crap.
80s?
Yeah, that was the early 80s, and everything went to shit. Yep. And that's when my dad said, okay, it's time to pack it up and let's go. And so at that point, Franco, who owns it today, Franco from La Dolce Vita, he bought it. He was the executive chef for my dad, and my dad sold it to him, and then he turned it into the legend that it is today. But we left and we went back because this notion of the Italians always going back to their home country and to go back where they came from was something that they wanted to do. So my mom, my dad, my sister, and I, and we packed up our bags and
Wow.
flew off back to Italy. And dad was commuting back and forth to work here to keep the business going and to do what he had to do. But my sister and I and my mom, we lived in Italy and we stayed there for just under 3 years.
Wow.
Very, very different for sure.
Wild change.
Extremely, because you're coming from a city to a world that you know to a village. And the village was maybe 5,000 people.
No way.
And old. Like I literally would say back in the day, I would have thought for sure I would have saw Fred Flintstone coming by or a dinosaur. If you focused enough, you could see them drive by, you know, because it was a village. It was a small community and that's where they came from. And so we moved back there. And at the time, my dad had bought a home that was meaningful to him, but it wasn't ready for us to move in. And so we lived up in a Borgo, in an old medieval village in the 1400s. And that's where I grew up for 3 years of my life and seeing a culture from going from modern life to slaughtering pigs and eating chicken and going to the local markets and going to school. And it was just totally shock.
Yeah, how do you handle that as a youngster? Those are interesting years, like 13, 16-ish. Like, what do you do? Like, how do you wrap your head around that? And, well, tell me, what was your move?
You know, I look at it today as being the best experience I've ever had in my life. I don't look at it as being the worst thing in my life.
Yeah.
At first, when you're there, it is the worst thing of your life. Because it was very difficult for us because I'm 13 and I now have to pick up a language from scratch that I'm, and here's the difference. Our culture, my family, and I think every Italian culture in North America, they know a dialect.
Yeah.
They don't know the true Italian. And so what do I mean by that? So in Italy, you have regions and they all have their own dialect to the point where you could go from Naples to Rome to Puglia. They all have a different language I had an aunt from Abruzzo that, oh my God, I love my aunt forever. I mean, she was my aunt. Oh my God, she's awesome. Half the time we didn't know what she was saying. What did she say? What did Zia say? I don't know. You know what I mean? Because their dialect is so different. And so you had to pick that up. So when I knew some of the Italian that my parents spoke at home, it was dialect. And so all of a sudden you go back to a medieval village and you go back to a small community where Italian was used in the schools, it was used in business, and it's used in general practices. But when you have an older community that still has the elders, you have to know both.
Yeah.
And so you learn the dialect. So for me, I had dialect first, but now I got to learn the Italian. So that was very challenging. So you're going to school, you get there, you are the shiny new thing in the school, right? So everyone's looking at you and, oh my God, you're from Canada and you're, oh my God, speak English. I want to hear. You're the cool kid, right? And then you're also the kid that everybody has to prove that, you know, you got to put your place in that. So that became difficult. And then at the same time, Mom wanted us to keep English. So we had to go to Italian school to get caught up with the language, go to school, go to English school to maintain your English so that you don't lose it because she didn't want us to lose our English. And then try to adapt in living in a community where certain things are difficult. So it was very, very difficult for sure. Me and my sister, we adapted, but it was also a different culture. It was a different time. Yeah.
And your dad bouncing back and forth. Like even that, at that era, is just to go from this small little place to fly, like it seems like a huge amount of work. And obviously from the outside, it's like, doesn't even make sense.
Well, you know, like, Dad, again, had the business, but again, at the same time, Dad was also he was gone for a long period of time,
yeah.
right? So mom was, constantly trying to maintain a lifestyle that we were here.
Yep.
But dad still had things that he still owned the building. He still had some real estate. We still have to clean up some things
Yep.
before I moved completely there. And it was sort of like 1 foot in, 1 foot out,
Yep.
kind of idea. So it was definitely like, I don't know the dynamics that played out with my mom and my dad on that. But, for me, it was like, okay, this is what we're going to be doing for the rest of our life. This is kind of interesting, and let's continue to proceed. But
Yeah.
it was difficult for us, and we hadn't moved into our own home, and so we were living with so this is where it gets even more nostalgic, is that we moved into a house where my father grew up, and then right next door was where my mother grew up.
Crazy.
So all of a sudden you're living in a medieval village, 1,400 people up in the Borgo. So Borgos are, whenever you go to Italy, you'll see the villages that are up in the mountains.
Yep.
And it's usually covered by a wall and it's got a tower. That's the Borgo. And so everyone lives there. It's really tight. Everybody's got a little slot of their own. And so you live there. And then as the city and through time, it progressed, and then the city and the village grows outside of it. So eventually everybody moves out of the Borgo and everybody lives in the city because it's the new modern way, and you get more value living in the medieval village. It becomes old and it becomes decrepit, and it's, how do you maintain that, right? So we lived there, and we lived there for a long time. And that's where we stayed because our home wasn't ready. So you're starting to pick up the cultural things that they do. My grandmother was still alive, and my grandfather, and so I was able to pick up their cultures and what they do to live a simple life.
It's so interesting you brought that up, because in my head I was thinking, like, I was wondering, did your mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, did they sit you down and talk about either values or how to live, how to be, where family fit? Like, did they actually sit you down and guide you, or was it just kind of watch and learn and just like feel things and absorb things?
Watch and learn and absorb.
Yeah.
I their life is simple. It wasn't complicated. They'll be sitting by, there was a routine that everybody had. There was, the summer was meant to grow, to capture what you need for the winter. And then when winter came around, you had a small TV that was in the corner that was, maybe a 10-inch screen that you had, and they would watch old Italian shows, and it wasn't a luxury life. And then they would sit by a fire with chestnuts, and they would sit there, and grandma would be knitting up a scarf or something for the winter, or getting stuff ready for somebody, and they would just be sitting there chatting and talking away. That was it. You had dinner, and you would clean up your plates. You put the slop in there for the pig in the back, and it was a simple life. It wasn't really complicated. We didn't make it. They didn't make it complicated, and you picked it up.
Have you ever, or does it ever come up with your kids right now? These stories of how you grew up and where you grew up and kind of how simple it actually was? Because as you're telling the story, I know you have kids.
Yeah.
You just learned about it 17 minutes ago, but like that, right? How they grew up to how you grew up, it's like a different...
Totally different.
It's not even in the same realm. It's like a different planet.
What's really cool is I have been blessed with the opportunity to allow my kids to see that.
Cool.
And to go back in time to see the places where that all took place.
Yeah.
So they now get it, and they can think back, oh my gosh. And so my wife and I had this dream that I would eventually buy the home of where my great-grandfather lived in the Borgo, and we did. So I bought it from my mom so that I can live there, and we would build a little small apartment for us to go back every once in a while. And it sounds glorious and luxury, but it's not. It's a 300-meter square foot shack that's falling apart, but you got this dream that you can fix it up and you can make it great. And so we really had this idea that we would have a place there, but it's not going to happen. It's just too difficult because the Borgo is aging to the point where I don't think they'll fix it ever again. But them going back and seeing where we all grew up and being able to walk in the room where I slept while, dad had to put partitions, but my dad came from a family of 11.
Jesus.
And they all lived in 2 rooms.
Crazy.
One big room that was a bathroom that was, 2 by 2 and a kitchen and a fireplace, and they would have beds nearby, and that's how it was. It wasn't, this luxury homes that they had, right? So when my kids get to go back and see that, it's quite interesting. It's quite fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, they get it.
Which is cool, right? Because this, like what you learned and felt back then, do you think it sticks with you?
Yeah.
Like right now, like either the decisions you make or the amount of work you put into things or the experiences you have, is it there? Like, do you kind of...
I think it shapes you.
Yeah.
It shaped me, I think, because so you go back to we were constantly moving because they were entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
almost like a military family.
Yeah.
They were constantly moving. But my mom and dad were always in a different business and doing something different. And so when we packed up our bags and moved back to Italy, another change. And now all of a sudden you don't grow up. All my friends that I knew in Calgary,
Yeah.
they moved on. And so when I came back, yeah, I had an experience and it was awesome. But when I came back, it's a time warp because I leave a small village, I come back to Calgary, and this is where it got really bad. I didn't get to start where I left off.
Yeah.
I had to start over. So all my buddies that I grew up, they're in grade 9. I'm starting in grade 7.
No way.
Yeah. They didn't accept it. They
it's
said,
like-
no, too bad. That's Italy. That's a farmland. Forget it. We're not going to take it. Started me back for my age. I went back in time.
Wow.
So now I'm grade 7 and I have to start all over. And what makes it even crazier is that now all of a sudden my friends leave junior high.
Yep.
I'm still in junior high. They're in high school. By then I'm 16 and I'm driving to junior high, asking the teachers to give me a parking stall. And they're looking at me going, you can't drive to school. Yeah, I can. According to the city, to the Alberta government, I can drive to school. I got a license, crazy. And so some of these kids, I mean, like they're younger than I am.
Yeah, for sure.
And so you don't adapt to them.
Were you angry? Were you like, when you came back, where were you? Were you like, oh, I'm happy to be here, but with all these weird changes, like, how did you handle it?
I was okay for the first little bit because my buddies that were in grade 9, what happened was I was hanging out with them.
Same school.
Yeah, same school,
yeah.
being able to hang out
yeah.
with them,
Yeah.
doing a lot of things. So they were grade 9 or I was grade 7, but I never hung out with my own clan. And then when they left, now all of a sudden I'm kind of a limbo land. I don't have very many friends. And then as my friends were getting older and I was getting older, then it was just they would be coming to pick me up in junior high from high school for lunch, and we'd be going to do a bunch of things and having a different lifestyle. So at first I was angry, but then you become again the popular kid.
Yeah.
You're the oldest,
Yeah. By a long shot.
right?
Yeah.
And so you're the guy that everybody's looking up to. Anything that happened in the school, principals would be calling me and saying, Peter, you're the leader. We know that for a fact. So we need to know who did what and why and where. And so you were always in trouble, and you were and then to really adapt and to get, what's the word? To really be able to cohesively be with people in your school and to merge and really blend in, it doesn't. You're not hanging out with them. You're hanging out with older people because they're your age and you're not hanging out with them. But eventually in time, you're just not really bonding.
Yep.
And so you really don't get a lot of good friends.
Yep.
Right? So it really becomes, there was maybe a handful, but then eventually in time, I finished grade 9 by the time I hit high school. And what was crazy is that when you're my age and you're in junior high, on the weekends, you're going to be a busboy at the restaurant and you're making tips, and that's what you're to do, right? You're all working a job or doing something from immigrant parents. And so that's what I was doing. So it was constantly, and then like I said, again, the sports, you maybe played football and I played football, but it was always either that, but you never hung around with a lot of the people that you grew up at school kind of idea.
So what happens when you get to high school?
High school. That was probably the best. I could tell you great stories about
No way.
that. Yeah, because by the time I hit high school, I'm
You could hang
grade
out
10, I'm 17,
You
right?
can hang out with the grade 12s.
I can
Are your
hang out with the
buddies-
grade 12s, and all of a sudden the fake IDs are easy. It's a little bit different, and the crowd is different. And so, yeah, we're doing that. So, grade 10, a lot of my buddies that are in grade 12, they're going to the Crow Child Inn, Uncle Eddie's, and they're all going to the bar, and I'm joining up with them. And then creating great stories of being able to get in. So I'll give you a good story I was always really good at. So we used to always go down to the Crow Child Inn. So it was Uncle Eddie's. The what was the one on the Cloud Trail, which is the back alley. But before that, what was it? Denny Andrews,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Jesus.
Denny Andrews. And then there was Raffles at the Blackfoot Inn. So I would always go there, and I'm underage and I'm not allowed to go. So I'm thinking, okay, how do I get in? I got to figure this out, right? So I came up with a plan. I thought, I'm gonna make this a long-term plan to get where I need to go, right? So my buddy Marco is like, okay, well, we got to get an ID, but you know what? So I called the restaurant, I called Raffles, and can I speak to a manager? Yeah. Sure, manager gets on. Hi, my name is Peter Izzo. How are you? That's great. Listen, did you find a wallet there? And they're like, what do you mean? I said, I lost my wallet. I know for a fact I lost it there. And they're like, no, we didn't find a wallet. I said, well, I need it. And I said, it's going to take forever to get a new driver's license, because back then it was a government thing. So you had time, right? So I just created this story by saying, I won't be able to get into your bar if I don't have a driver's license. So can I maybe just put me on the list, and maybe at least when I get there, the bouncers know that I can get in? And she's like, Peter, we can do that for you. I said, perfect. I put myself on the list. So now we're going to the bar, and I'm going there, and the people are standing in line, and I'm just walking up to the bouncer, and I'm like, I'm Peter Izzo. I'm on the list. Oh, yeah, go on in. Perfect. Brilliant. Now I'm in the bar, and I'm always going there. I didn't have to ask for ID. I just VIP walked right in the door all the time. And then they got to know me, and it was like, they're just going in. They knew they were breaking the law.
And then you had your 18th birthday there.
Yeah, so grade 10 was really a great experience. Grade 11 got even more fun because there was a group of buddies. And you're from Calgary, you would maybe remember this, but on 16th Avenue and Center Street, there was Frankie and Johnny's. And they used to have peepers downstairs, the strip joint. So by this time, I'm 18. I'm like, okay, what am I doing here? We got to do something here. And so at lunchtime, I wouldn't stick around at school. We would go to Peepers. And they had literally a great lunch. You get a pitcher of beer, you had fries and a burger, and we used to sit in the back of the room. And it got so frequent that the people at Peepers knew who we were. 'Cause we were, dirty old men, right? Dirty guys. So we would go. And it would be funny because then one of my teachers, and I won't name any names, he's like, where are you guys going? We're going to Peepers. What do you mean you're going to Peepers? You can't go to Peepers. Oh, yeah, I can. I'm of age. If you want, you're welcome to come. Our burgers and beer are ready to go. But if you want, you're welcome to come. I'm coming. So all of a sudden, they're getting into their van, and I'm getting into my truck, and we're off going to Peepers, having a beer. And there's a show going on while we're eating our burger and drinking beer. We finish, we go back to school. It was crazy. So that was the first year of grade 11, the first part of grade 11. And then by then, being an entrepreneur in a family, Dad had the business, but I was never getting paid.
Classic.
It's, you
Yeah.
live in this house, you work. And it'd be like, but I have girlfriends. I have things to do. I need cash. Cash is king.
And just like hard no?
No,
Just
no.
family business, get in your work.
Yeah, and that's your job, right?
Yeah.
Kind of idea. So I was always doing, and I don't know, maybe I was just meant to be a grunt. Maybe I was always meant to work. And so you get that disconnect. You don't have that many friends because, you're out of sync with everybody in your school.
Yeah.
not the same age, not the same thing. And so you get a little bit older and you start to see certain things where, okay, I'm not a teacher's pet. I'm not doing well in school. I'm already, bastardized because I have to start all over.
Yep.
Now I'm falling behind and I hate school from the get-go because now I'm starting all over again, and you're going through this process, and then
Yep.
you get to high school and your buddies are moving on, they're going to university, and you never kind of connect,
Yep.
right? And so an opportunity came where my family on a different side had the railroad. They worked the railroad, and that's how we got here. My family followed them, and so there was a position where they needed somebody to work night shift. So I took it. So I went to school in the morning from 8:30 until 3:30. Went home,
Yep.
did a little bit of homework, appeased my teachers, go to bed, eat, go to bed, wake up at 9, and go straight to work and work the railroad and work the LRT. And I was doing a lot of work on the LRT at night and doing work for a contracting company. So I did that pretty much all the way through school, working the night shift. And I wanted to play sports, and I was good at football and I was good at wrestling and all of that stuff. But at that point, you're just disconnected. I'm making money.
Yeah.
I'm an older age now. I mean, it was quite funny because by the time I hit grade 12, I'm calling in, "Hi, this is Peter Izzo. I won't be coming into class. Mr. Izzo, I'm sorry, you can't do that." No, I can. 18, grade 11, I'm allowed to do this. You know what I mean? You're getting away with murder, right? Just because you're that age.
It's such a different upbringing.
Totally.
It might be an overstatement, but it feels like a movie TV show, right? It's just this. It's a very unique story.
Like I said, working and worked the railroad, going to school, and then by grade 11, going to the nightclubs, being able to, on the days off that I had, and then, like I said, I finally met my wife and fell in love with her, and that was it. It was just her and I, and pretty much high school came. Once high school was done, I stuck with the railroad. We moved out together, and we just and moved on. And then that was a no because you don't marry. You wait till you marry, and then you can leave home. But by then I was just like, my life was a little bit more complicated. It was difficult, and I'm like, okay. And it was just basically work, school, girlfriend, and you just did that through the whole process. And so I knew a lot of people. I was popular. Yes, I knew a lot of people, but I never connected with people.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I have, as I've gotten older in life, is I want to connect with people. I want to know who you are, what you do, and what makes you tick. And just because I never got that when I was younger, right?
Yeah.
Constantly moving, constantly doing something different, right?
When you get out of high school, still with the railroad, is the family business still around you? Are you still there, like, slave labor, not getting paid, or how does are you actually making like a conscious decision to go a different way?
Well, again, I needed to get paid. This is where it got even more complicated, is that my dad wanted me to always work the business. And it was very difficult because my dad ran the business as entrepreneurs always do. There's no paychecks. You put it in the kitty. We build, we buy, we move things around, and it's for the greater good, for the collective, right? But there's no individual in. We don't give you a paycheck, and if you did, when I got to a point where I was wanting to have money and I wasn't getting it from my dad, or I had to get it from my dad, he would be, "Oh, how much do you need?" "Dad, I need $50. He'd be looking at me, go, $50? Where are you going? And you'd have to go through that whole story. And so I'm like, okay, I'm not doing this anymore. I can't do it. And so it was always like, it was that independence of, I'm going to make my own money, do what I have to do, earn it, and go do that, and go from there. And so when I worked the railroad, and I was doing it through high school, and working the night shift, my mom was like, "What are you doing? Why are you being this way?" And I'm like, "I need money. I'm not making it with my dad." And when I had the days off from not working, because the job that I had with the railroad at the time was fixing a lot of the stuff in the middle of the night with the LRT that was faulty and needed to be done in the middle of the night.
Yep.
But when I had the time off and the weekends and the opportunity, it would be like, yeah, you go and help him with the business, right?
Yeah.
And so you did. And at the time, my sister was married. She had a husband that was involved in the business that was giving my dad a little bit of an opportunity to continue to run the business equally. And I knew that I can rely upon them to like, okay, they're going to take on this business and I'm making money on the railroad. But there was always this thing that my dad really had a grudge that it was like, no, you are the son and you need to come and work with me, like, period. And so when I was working the railroad, my dad would pay the foreman extra money to make sure I got the shittiest jobs ever.
No way.
Yeah. Oh my God. And I didn't learn until it was later because I was like, why am I always getting the shittiest jobs? Like, Peter, you go do this and you go do that. And I'm like, fuck, I've been here longer than anybody else. What the fuck am I doing doing that? I got seniority around here. What is going on here?
Dad.
I see. Here's the story. I'm working the railroad. I'm doing the LRT Brentwood leg, the university to Brentwood. That new station was just coming on, and my job was during the day building that track all the way through. So shift started at 7. You finished at 4:30. I'm with my wife today, my girlfriend, and I get home. I'm pulled off a full shift. Now, before we're finished the shift, it's like, okay, what's going on? Because we had 2 contracts going on, the company that I was working for. They were building the new leg at Brentwood, and there was the CP tunnel and the City Hall tunnel that they were fixing because the work that I was doing during high school was prepping this job to happen today. So I'm working this job, and so there were 2 crews. One was working a night shift, and one was working a day shift doing the extra leg. And so I said to my foreman at the time, I'm like, okay, we're done? Yeah, we're done. Okay, I'm perfect. Where am I going? Am I here, or are we moving crews? Are we shifting the crews? Because there was always this thing that the night crew would work so many days of nights, and then they would swap the 2 teams out and move them around so that you're not always working night shift, because that's a different world, right? So we did that. And I said to my foreman, I said, well, are we swapping, or are we there? No, come here tomorrow, 7:00, be here. We're doing the crew. And I'm like, okay, all right. So I get home, shower, call my girlfriend, call Kelly. I said, hey. She's like, hey, my dad's in town. He wants to go for some Thai food. Let's go. And I'm like, I'm in. So I'm getting ready. My parents are like, where are you going? I'm going to go for dinner with my girlfriend. And my girlfriend is a white girl. She's not Italian. So that's a problem already right from the get-go, right? And so my dad is like, well, why? You can't eat here? And I'm like, well, no, her dad's in town. And so we're going to go. Sure enough, we go for dinner. The phone rings in the restaurant, and the hostess comes to the table. Is there a Peter Izzo here? And I'm like, yeah, that's me. Here's a phone call for you. The old hand-free, the phone. And I'm like, hello? And it's like my foreman. And he's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm having dinner. What do you mean you're having dinner? Why are you not in bed? You got to work tonight. No, not working tonight. I work tomorrow at the Brentwood leg. I'm not doing a night shift. He's like, no, you're doing a night shift. And are you fucking kidding me? I just put in a 12-hour day. And now you're telling me I'm going to go home, get a couple of hours of sleep, and go work another 12-hour day? Yeah, if you don't go, you're going to be fired. And I'm like, you know what? When I'm done dinner, I'll go home, I'll get showered up, I'll go to bed, and I'll be there at work at 9:00. Okay, click the phone. I look at my wife and I'm like, I got to go to work. She's like, you just worked. And I'm like, I got to go to work. So I get home, I go to bed, I go to work, and I'm working at the CP tunnel, and we're working on it's called a jet edge machine, and it's high pressured water on a gun, and you're cutting concrete with it it was crazy. I get there and the guys are like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm here. I got to work. You worked this morning, didn't you? And I'm like, yeah. Did we change? And I'm like, no. Well, why are you here? I'm like, I have no idea. I was told that you guys needed a guy and I was supposed to be here. They were like, no. And so they're like, you know what? Go in the truck, have a sleep. we'll take it from here. You're good. And I'm like, okay. So I went in, got in the truck, got a few hours of sleep, and God was able to get by through the night shift. But I pulled that night shift. If it wasn't for the guys, I'd be like, oh my God. But they were like, they knew I was working. And then I eventually found out that my dad had paid the foreman because he didn't want me. He wanted my life to be as miserable as possible to come back and work for him.
Fucking hell. Wait, how do you wrestle with that? How do you wrestle with that idea of your dad trying to sewer you for X amount of years to try and lure you, bait you to get back in the family biz?
You know, I always believe that there's a reason to everything.
Yeah.
And I believe that the path that I'm on is meant to be. And I look at it today. At the past, I would look at it, go, oh my God, he was just sabotaging me. And even so, after I left, because once that happened, I'm like, okay, I'm not doing the railroad because obviously you're making my life miserable just based on the fact that my dad is asking you so I can join the company. And it was like, okay, bullshit, I'm moving on and I'm going to go somewhere else. And so I started working with Stuart Olson. I started doing construction, and that at that time, then I'm off to work in the out of town crew, because they were the ones that were always the people that anybody that worked out of town was, you're in trouble. You've been in jail for a number of years. You're coming out to see your probation officer. It's a little bit easier when you're traveling and working in Saskatchewan or Manitoba. So I got to work the Banff, and we were doing all the new swells and the curbs and gutters along the Banff Avenue, the Banff Strip there kind of idea. So I started working that for a little bit. And then my dad was trying to find a way to get to the foreman again and giving it a hard time for me. And then there was a crossing point. And the crossing point was my dad sat me down. And at the time, my sister was divorcing with the husband that was helping my dad through that process. And then all of a sudden, there was a divorce going on with her and him. And that's when my dad sat me down and said, listen, there's two options here. Either I get rid of the company and close it for good, or you come and work for me. Yes or no? Because that's how easy it is, because I can't do this anymore. You're working for everybody else, but you're not working for me. And at that point, I said to my dad, I said, I agree, but it's either my way or forget it, because you're running it like this and we're running it out of the home. We're not running it like a business. You know, you have the showroom in the basement, the garage that should be for a car is the workshop, and it's not. And, you know, yeah, you're an entrepreneur and you're opening up the doors for people while you're having dinner and someone wants to buy a cappuccino machine. And it's funny now because you look at it today and you're like, my gosh, people that were in our house on a regular basis to see the showroom downstairs. And I still have the old business cards with my dad in his suit and bow tie with a photo of the nostalgic pictures of all the machines are around. Oh, it was hilarious. But yeah, I'm like, okay, we can't run it like this. We have to run it like a business. Like,
How old were you when he sat you down?
by then I was probably about 19, 20.
Yep.
Because by then it was early 90, 98.
Okay.
Yeah, around there.
What do you think it took for him to sit you down? Do you think do you think it was like a moment of desperation? Do you think it was
Desperation.
Like he wanted you there for a lot of years, and then for him to sit you down, I'm sure that was an interesting spot for him.
Definitely desperation, I have to believe. I the only thing I can say is that, and this is where the difference between my dad eventually in time and him and I had a difference in the business. Dad had the business, and I always believed that it was a cash flow business for him to create his real estate ambitions. So he became more of a landlord, bought property. That's pretty much most of the Italians. They always bought another house and then another house, and then they rented it and they renovated it. And that's what they were doing, right? So I think that when my dad had the cappuccino business, for him, it was a cash flow business. And all of a sudden now there's, you know, he's running off to do real estate and do other things and wine and dine, but he still needed someone to do the day-to-day repairs and the deliveries and all of that fancy stuff. And so I think that when my sister and her husband were getting divorced, and it was, you know, a toll on the family, Dad was like, okay, I'm going to lose an opportunity of my cash cow. Now all of a sudden, what do I got to do? But my son, I think there's a little bit of that and a little bit that, okay, he's my son. He's got to take over this business. What are we doing here, right?
Yeah.
And that's when he said, okay, like enough is enough now. Stop playing around. Let's go. Time to focus on, let's be a company and let's do this, what we have to do, right? Kind of idea.
And did he, when you kind of like laid out the ground rules of what you wanted and what it should be, was it pushback, or was he in such a spot that he had to agree and let you kind of go?
At first, a little bit of a pushback, but and then at the same time, it definitely was, because by then he had built a plaza on Edmonton Trail, which is, again, renting it to other people. And that's when I said to my dad, we can't do this. I mean, we can't have the showroom in my house. Like, I mean, that's just not feasible. And so we moved the shop down the block to 23rd Avenue. And we created a 800 square foot bay that he had that was originally rented out to a formal suit tailor guy to do suits. And then eventually in time, when he knew that I needed it, he kept everything the way that it was and then put everything in the showroom there. And it was like, we have shelving where it's not supposed to be. It was like, oh my God, what are we doing? But anyway, I was happy. There's progress. It's slow, but it's progress. And so we moved into the showroom, and we finally get there. And so I created an office in the lower level. So now I can do the bookwork. I have an office, it's not on a desk or a table in the kitchen. You know what I mean? It's somewhat of a business feel. And at the time, then it started to grow where I needed to now hire employees. And it was quite crazy because at the time, we still had the shop there, and we needed to move the shop below the same space that we had. But when we designed it and the way that it was, you could never bring espresso equipment down into the basement. There was no way you can do it. You had to leave it there. And so we were doing things very unorthodox. You had the repair shop there, and then I eventually hired a gentleman that came to work for us. His name was Curtis, and he started doing repairs. But then my parents were getting upset because they couldn't watch him do the repairs while he was sitting there. And they would, maybe he's just sitting around doing nothing. And it's like, oh my God, difficult, like just difficult.
It's like that, I wasn't around like the immigrant lifestyle, but it's like that you see it in TV shows and movies, like that classic immigrant story. Don't trust anybody, family business.
Yeah.
Pressuring the next generation to like do the thing. Like it's like this.
It is. Yeah. That's the image. That is what it is. And the turmoil that goes with it is absolutely staggering. Like we look at it and we think, okay, it is part of life and we've accepted it.
Yeah.
But some people would never understand that. Like we would, when we talk about when families get together and there's loud and everybody's screaming and yelling at each other, my wife would be crying all the time. She'd be like, why you guys yell at each other like this? And I'm like, no, we're just chatting. We're just having a conversation. It's all good, right? And then after my dad would offend you, it'd be like nothing ever happened. You move on and you keep going, right? So it was very, very different. And so we moved into the new space, and that started to turn it into a little bit more of a business.
Yeah.
But still it was a lot of progress for sure. From where my parents were to moving the business into a retail space that can now become a little bit more. Yeah. But now I'm going to paint you a picture. So you came into this room, and my dad always loved salmon or pink colors, soft colors. I don't know if he was blind. I have no idea. But we had all these tables with all these beautiful machines on display. And then my dad always had a TV in the top of the corner. You've got this beautiful modular bar that we brought in from Europe where you can have it on display because he wanted to sell these bars. So he had this, it took up 3/4 of the room, bunch of tables with machines. And then he'd have a little stool, and he'd have his, and that's where he would be smoking, and he'd have his fedora hat on. He'd be smoking, his feet up on the other chair, and he'd be watching, videotape or the news or something. And if someone came in, they'd open up the door, and you'd have this hover of cloud of smoke.
This isn't the 50s, by the way. This is like 90s, 2000s. Jesus.
And we were the only, we were on the gig. There was maybe 2 or 3 of us in the city of Calgary that did this. And so all of a sudden you got people that walked in, and I have to believe to this day that people walked in going, We can't walk out with not buying something. This guy is going to take us out back and put cement boots on us.
Somebody showing up here.
And you can see my dad be like, put his cigarette out, put it aside, and then put on his charm and start talking to you and going through the whole series of telling you everything about espresso machine. And you'd be like, okay, some would love it and we're just immersed by that. This is authentic. Yeah. It doesn't get any more authenticity than this, right? But then others, I have to believe they were just in panic mode. Like, yeah, let's just buy, just quick buy. And it was funny because my dad we didn't have debit machines or credit cards. It was check or cash.
Obviously. Do you like, this is a movie, isn't it? It's like there's something to this, because it's like.
I've had people walk out of the showroom when I was standing there when I was younger, and I'd have people walk out of the showroom. I'll be back. How much is that machine? And my dad would give them the price. I'll be back. I don't have that kind of cash in my pocket. I got to go to the bank machine. I got to go to the bank. I'll be back in a second. I'll have it ready for you when you come back. It's a movie. It is. It really was.
Did you, when you're in it?
Yeah, like, I'm in the movie.
What do you like feeling when you're now you're like fully in the family business, making some decisions, kind of, you know, allowing it to mature. Your dad's doing his thing. Like, what are you feeling back then? Are you like, I'm in the right spot? Are you like, fucking dad has slowed me down? Like, what are you thinking?
There was a point that's what happened. And so I worked for the company and, you know, I'm living my life. My wife and I had married now. This is 94. I have, you know, by 96, I have 2 kids. I have 2 boys, right? 98, 96, I'm there. I've got kids now. And so that's when I started to see. And one of the biggest challenges that I noticed in my industry was we weren't different than anybody else. Anybody that was doing what we were doing was the same. Everybody was doing the same. It's just that what I felt was sometimes we didn't capture the business because the perception, when business people would come into my door, they would be like, can you handle our business? Are you sure? Right. Mom and pop, that's great. But now it's becoming more mainstream. It's more of something what people know. And so at the end of the day, can you handle the business? And I started to see that we weren't getting contracts that I think that we could have gotten that were just because we were no different than others, but the perception was they were a bigger company or they could handle the business and we couldn't. And so, and I also knew that there were some challenges that we were having because, again, there was still not a payroll. Like, you know, back in the day when I was with my dad, we were partners now in the business. My dad wasn't still cutting checks. He was like, okay, just, you know, have a company pay your bill. You know what I mean? And as you go on, you're like, okay, no, this is not working because, you know, now it's no longer, it's not a paycheck. It's shareholders' loans, right? And so you start going through this process and you're learning and you're really learning very quickly. And you're realizing that, okay, this formula is not the right formula. We need to figure out what we need to do. What's the next step in the business? How do we make this better? And so that's when Dad was, you know, we weren't doing some business. It was getting quieter. And I think the one year where it kind of really caught me into guard was our accountant had just said, if I were you guys, close the door.
No way.
You're not making any money. You're not doing what you do. You're giving away equipment. You're not doing well. If the numbers don't make sense. And so it's time for you guys to make that change. And that's when I said, holy smokes, I've made this my career. And it's not going well, then what do we need to do it? And at that point, that's when I said to my dad, we have to make a change. And it's either go big or go home or, you know, we have to do something. And so he fought. He didn't want to do it. And so there was a big clash.
Like,
and then,
I was just going to, like, big.
Big. It was a big, to the point where I just said the company had 2 brandings, and that was where the branding became 2 separate entities. So there was the Cappuccino King, but there was still Vince Izzo Imports. And so at that point, I just said to my dad, I'll take Cappuccino King, you take the importing business. I'm going to go do my own thing, and you do yours if you want to stay in this nostalgia way. But if not, I'm going. And then at the time, he didn't take it seriously. But then when I started to reach out to a realtor, we're looking at space. And then at that point, I think it became real to my dad saying, okay, this is the next stage of our business, and I don't know if I can do that. And I think that was a threatening point for him, because now it's no longer something that he can control. It's no longer about him. It's totally different, right?
That like generational, you know, dad built the thing, has done all this work, all the sacrifices he made along the way, keeping this thing going. Wants to work with his son. Son has bigger ideas, different ideas. Like that, like generational trauma or the arguments or the direction. It's like, it's real, right? Like it
is real.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was really, it becomes, it was very difficult. It was very difficult for my wife and I. We were young, young couple, have kids. You're trying to figure this out, and you know about it, but you don't. But I was never afraid of the work. We always knew that we had to work. Yeah. My wife worked at Mount St. Francis, at the retreat. Her mom was, the cook there for years, for 40 plus years. So she was doing the laundry at night, and the kids were, in a hamper while she's doing the laundry. I mean, we were doing whatever we could to get going and make our life. And then, when we went back to part of the business where it was like, okay, we need to do something here, because I'm not progressing. Yeah. I'm actually standing still, and it just wasn't a part of that. And then when Dad said, okay, let's make the change, there was still a lot of fight. He didn't want to do it whatsoever, because it was a big change for him. And I get it. I look at it today now, and I truly understand it. Yeah. But I was always graced with my dad being able to fess up and finally say, you know what, this is awesome, right? So I was always gave me the gratitude at a later date, but he always did. So when we built our showroom and our new space that we've had now for the last 20 years, totally changed the game, but it got to a point for him where it was beyond his abilities. Like he couldn't take it on that point. Now I'm able to hire multiple employees. It's a totally different gig, totally different world. But when it was all said and done, it was like, wow, I didn't think it was going to be like this, right? I didn't think it was going to come like that.
You kind of touched on it, the work ethic. You kind of, like what you went through to get it to where it is right now, like a bunch of stressful situations, bunch of work, family sacrifice, like all the things. You kind of grew up with it though. Like you kind of watched it your entire life. When you had to like double down and figure all this out and do all the work, was it just a natural, I just work. Yeah. And that's what you do.
You just grunted. Yeah. And I think that I have a lot of respect for a lot of people that have planned it out and have managed to get through life. They plan, I do this, I do that. And you know what? Like a business structure. When people start a business, they have a business plan.
Wait, okay. Are they... Yes, that's one option. It's like... That's
an option. That's all I know is people make business plans. And people said to me, what's a business plan? I have no idea.
But isn't that interesting though, right? We hear from the outside that these people have these plans. I don't know. I don't have a plan. What you've built, however you want to like categorize it, there wasn't this structure behind it. But here you are today, doing the thing, a bunch of like experiences that, I don't know, are very different.
And now that I'm older... Yeah. It's made me bitter, respectful, but bitter. And what do I mean by that? When you're going through this process and you're going through building and growing and doing the things, I did it as there's an entrepreneur and then there's businessmen. Yeah. And I've always said to many people, my dad was an entrepreneur, not a businessman. And people ask me, what is that? A businessman is a man who has a plan, a strategic plan, has things in place that make it a successful operational business. Entrepreneurs, they go by the seat of their ass and they do whatever it takes to make it. They're successful, but a businessman has a plan. It makes it a business. So I'll give you an example. When I took the business over, like the accounting processes, the way that things were done in order to run a business were not done. Like most people, if they take on a father's business, I mean, there's processes and a plan and there's a strategy and, you have structure. No, man, I had books and I'm like flipping through, checking my receivables, making photocopies. Like it was crazy. And so if my dad was a business plan, I think maybe the business could be bigger or could be better.
Yeah.
But I spent most of the years, I spent most of the years building the business.
Yeah.
And then, but also trying to make it more of a business, not just an entrepreneur structure. You want to have a shareholders agreement. You want to have all these things that you need to understand, and then you want to build it accordingly. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. But your way is very interesting, though. You know, like I feel like when I started my business, I was like, I wonder if there's this magical business plan that's going to put me on this path and make me successful. Or I wonder if being an entrepreneur is like, you got to be coached in it. You know, do you have to have your parents have to be entrepreneurs and you have to be like coached and put in this spot? I had all these like whimsical, weird ideas. And then you jump in and do it. And I think the cliche needing the plan to start, I think there's merit in that. But I do think your version is really interesting. Trauma, a bunch of work, head down, but then you have the brain power to actually know about, okay, if I'm going to do this thing long term, I need to put some process in place. I think that's a very organic way to do it.
But you also do it based on the fact that you come to learn that I think the biggest, the turning point for me was I have children now.
Yeah.
And I need to have, and when you go to the bank and you start still building a family life and an entrepreneur life,
Yeah.
those are two things,
Yeah.
right? Because in an entrepreneurial way, you're not making profit. Yeah, but when I got to go to the bank to get a mortgage, I'm not making any money.
Your T4 says $7,000. Sorry.
Right? And so you get this balance and say, okay, well, how is everybody else doing this?
Yeah.
How are they getting away with, buying a home? And me and my wife are looking at each other going, are we buying a trailer? Like what are we doing? Like, I don't know what we're doing here because we're not getting ahead. And so you start to pick it up. And, I take some proverbs that my dad always had that were really interesting. And one was never be the smartest man in the room. And he'd always be like, you hang around with people that are smarter than you and you learn from them. If you're the smartest guy, you got a problem because, you're not learning anything, you're teaching and you're not a professor. So, don't be the smartest guy in the room.
Yeah.
So always hang around with people that are better than you. And so I always took that and I could listen really well. I can have a conversation. I can argue, but I also saw that I have to focus on what other people are doing and how do I make my world a lot better. And so when we go back to, I look back and say, I'm very disappointed because, like I said, I spent most of the years building the business to be a business so I could hire employees and can have people still run it. And I'm still trying to figure it out. But you spent most of your life thinking that, okay, I'm building an empire or I'm building an opportunity, but you're cleaning up such a disastrous transition of that. It's not clear. Anybody that's got a clear path, God bless you. Oh my God. God bless you. You've done it right. I'm still going, what?
Isn't it? I don't know how often you tell this story or how many people know like kind of behind the curtains, but like from the outside, somebody might look at where you're at and be like, oh, dude's successful, like crushing it, whatever level, right? And behind the scenes, I'm sure there's a level of success. I'm sure it's all kind of happening, but behind the scenes is like, there's also a different version of all this.
And that's my communication, or that's my conversations every day now. I don't live a great life. It's complicated. It's difficult. It's challenging. You're constantly, I don't have a university degree.
Yeah.
Right? And so I'm making decisions that that are affecting my employees
Yeah.
that have it. And when I see some of these people that they start up companies and they do well, and sometimes I go to meetings and stuff like that, and they're talking about some things that I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, don't ask me, please don't. But there's a perception, right? And so I think that's okay. There's nothing wrong with having a perception that you're bigger. And I think this is where the success for us, the transition that stuck with us. We changed our perception of we can be the company that can help you.
Yeah.
Right? And so that perception was we're good, we're better, we're bigger.
Yeah.
And so that's carried on. And still I think that is happening today. But honestly, like sometimes you take it on and then deal with the consequences later, right?
Yeah. You snuck something in there, not having a university degree.
Yeah.
I'm a 3-time Mount Royal dropout. I have a multimedia certificate from 99, a 12-month program, and that's what this shit is built on. So it's like, I agree you can probably learn some stuff in school. Maybe there's some like technical business things you learn, but all the things that you really know that you're really good at, whether it's how to listen, how to engage with customers, how to sell, like all these life lessons, these skills that you have from just being around it for so long. Do you know that you have all that stuff, or does it rank differently in your tool bag?
Oh,
it's, and this goes back to the earlier conversation around what people think it takes. You think you need a business plan. You think you need to like have this entrepreneurial, like someone has to show you the ropes. Everyone thinks these things, which is then this university idea. That's where this is all kind of connecting for me.
Well, I can tell you that there's a lot of people in this world that have university degrees, and they're the smartest tool in the show. Oh my God, they've got it dialed in.
Yep.
But the people skills, the opportunity to do something, it doesn't come together. I think there's definitely an opportunity to have the benefit of understanding in school. Someone told me at one time they have a university degree, and she said the only thing that it's done for me is that it's helped me do research. I know how to research the shit out of something, right? I still got whiteout on my screen, as I told you, from my Google searches. Oh, I made a mistake. Let's try that again. I was blessed with an entrepreneurial family that I saw, I think, through time of do whatever it takes to do something and to do it.
Yep.
And I think the adversity of me always being pushed to the limit. Like, it's quite interesting because my wife used to have many arguments with my dad saying, why don't you give him credit?
Oof.
Yeah.
I can't.
But her and my dad became really good friends because my dad really, appreciated the fact that she was a white girl that, picked up a lot of the Italian culture, and she's probably more Italian than I am, but yet she's Dutch, right? But she used to have the argument, like, why don't you give your son the credit? Why don't you pat him on the shoulder?
Yeah.
And my dad would be like, well, then he won't do it anymore. He's got to look for the validation, right? Mm-hmm. And she would be like, maybe he just likes the validation. Like, give him the opportunity to know. Now, I know now today that, they were challenging. And I know that he meant well, but I was capable of interpreting that. Yeah. Even though it was hard, I interpreted the fact that he came from a rough life. They came from a different background than we did, right? Mm-hmm. And so you plugged your head, you did what you do, and you survive, right? Yeah. And so I think that carried through with me and, doing the football, doing the wrestling, doing the events. They never did come. They weren't there. Mm-hmm. They weren't with the mom and dad in the car and driving me from location to location like everybody else today. Mm-hmm. My parents were like, you're on your own, buddy. I got a business to run and we got things to do. So if you're doing it, you're doing it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And if you got hurt, you got another ass whooping when you got home because you got hurt. Mm-hmm. How does that work?
You're taking time out of their life to fucking deal with you. It's like
I'll never forget it. We were in Renfrew, and my dad had Napoli Sports Club at the time, and we were playing baseball in the house projects, because that's what they are. Most of them now, they're condos. Mm-hmm. Back in the day, they were the project houses. They had 6 houses in one big strip. That was that. And so we used to play in the back there, and I'm stealing second base, and I'm now backpedaling, like playing around, and I turn around and I hit a post, and my face is out like this, And I'm going back to my dad's cafe, the Napoli Sports Club there, and I'm walking there, and I'm 10. I'm getting my ass handed to me because my dad is like, "Look at you! I now have to take you to the hospital."
And I'm working.
And you're like, "I'm sorry, but you got your ass kicked again." And you're like, what's going on here, right? But you get it.
Now that you have your sons and your upbringing, all your experiences in family business, in and out of it, is it interesting when you have your sons now? How do you wrestle with it all? Because what your experience as a youngster was like very different.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
That's one way. That's probably the PG version of it. It was different. But now as you know, your boys, like, do you do everything? There's some underlying things that you grew up with that are just, whether it's work ethic and dedication and risk tolerance and like all these intangible things that you probably learned along the way. But like, what do you do with your kids now? How do you balance all this?
You can't.
You just like wing it?
I'm still trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
So my two boys, one is 27 and the other one is 29.
Okay.
And they are absolutely awesome. We're a very tight family. We have a lot of family interaction on a regular basis.
Yeah.
They've been a part of our lives that is we're different. We're different from many families. So a lot of their friends, they come from single homes, different lifestyle, but the Izzos have always in our family, we're not the norm. And so we get together often. If you wanted to kill my family on a Wednesday night, find the dirtiest pub down the street from where we live. And the four of us are having beer and wings and we're just having a great night. And that's it. And we're chatting and we're not talking about business. We might, but we'll be talking about just everything in general. And then mom always has to have the Sunday dinners. Cool. So we still do that. And again, we understand our kids. We're young, and that was one of the things why we wanted to have children at a young age so that we could grow with them. And then by the time that they're of age, that they're on their own, we can still be able to enjoy our life and we're not seniors in a way. That was our way of doing it.
Yeah.
But it's challenging now. It's one of the biggest challenges and the hurdles I have to do right now, and that is my son, my oldest son, who's part of the business and has been with me now for a while, so the career path that they chose. So I always told my kids, I don't care what you do.
Yeah.
Whatever schooling, whatever you want to do, you do what you love, because I love what I do. I don't go to work thinking I'm going to work. I'm going to a place where I get to play, meet people. I love what I do. I really, truly love what I do. And I said, I want you to have the same experience that I do. So I hope that you can do the same, but I still need you to have some form of education beyond high school, whether it be university or whether it be a trade. So my oldest, who was the first one to get out of high school, he decided to be a chef. So he went to go work and do the culinary program at SAIT, and then went to go work in fine dining in French cuisine and did that for a little bit of a while. And that's where he got his ass handed to him, because it's old school stuff. And sure enough, he goes to work for a high school friend of mine that we competed in culinary school together. And he's got the restaurant. And so he's old school chef, throw things at you.
Yeah. Rip.
Yeah, just one of those. And so my son did that. And then there was a project that I needed a food and beverage specialist. And so Mike had sold his restaurant. And so I said to my kid, what do you want to do? I got this project. Do you want to help me? He's like, yeah, I'll help you. And that sounds great. So he did. Never left. The youngest became a welding engineer technician. Went to St. got that trade. But then a 23-year-old going into the oil patch, trying to tell 50 and 60-year-old men that weld is not good.
Problem. Baby face.
Come here, young boy.
Yeah.
Let me show you something, right? So that became very stressful. And then COVID happened, and then he just kind of didn't want to go back to the oil and gas and welding industry, and said, I'll go back to university. And so he went back to university to take a business degree in financing kind of idea. So now it's great conversations because now he's got some book smarts with him. So now he still wants to argue with his dad on that. And it's like, yeah, it doesn't work that way.
It's like, but there's like decades of experience here, boy.
But then he uses the big fancy
Yeah,
words
for sure.
that he
You're
locks
just like,
here.
yeah.
And you're like, what is he talking about? And you're trying to Google it or AI it somehow. What's he talking about? And I'm like, it doesn't work that way. So, but yeah, so they both have trades and that they can always go back to. And I don't want them to join the business if they don't want to.
Yeah.
I do have my oldest now that's been there for 7 years and trying to get him to step up as a leader and to try to get him to take on that bigger role. I'm almost tempted at times that I got to think that I might have to do the same talk that my dad did. Like, what do you want to do? Like, do you want to be a part of this? Like, do you want to be a part? Because I need to figure out my life too, right? And I think that's where the challenge is today for me. I think that's trying to figure that out.
After hearing all this, which is such a cool story, do you all the harder lessons you learned from your dad, all the wild experiences, all the push you into a corner, just all these things, is it? And then when you said you fully love what you do right now, it's interesting. It's interesting to hear because it's like, you had a different upbringing in this traditional immigrant-led entrepreneurial story. It's the classic thing of take advantage of the kid, make him work, don't pay him, all the things. And here you are today saying you love this thing. I find it fascinating. Are you surprised that where you sit today of kind of what you went through and actually really feeling it right now, that you love it?
I think the reason why that happened is because of the fact that when you're working for family and you're doing the job, but then I think when I made the conscious decision to take it to the next level, and not because, and it wasn't because there was this desire to, oh my God, I'm going to create the business. It was, I needed to feed my family and I needed to figure out how do I be able to, at least make this business a little bit more professional. I need to find a way to be able to get a holiday in. And I think the suffering part of it, I'm living a totally different life than every other friend that I ever had. They work for somebody and they're getting their 2 weeks holiday. Holiday? What's a holiday? Right? And my kids bug me today and I'm grateful that they understand. They truly do. But I wasn't there for a lot because I was running the business. And then at the same time, I had deadlines where I had to make customers happy by repairing their equipment and having it brought back to their business. That's their business. No cappuccino, no lattes in the morning. I mean, holy, that's my business. What are you doing? And so you'd be working late nights. You'd work till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. You'd go to bed. You'd get up in the morning at 9 and off you go back to work and continue that cycle, right? To the point where my wife was doing holidays on her own because if not, she wouldn't have a holiday because I was always working. And at times I was like, I get it. It's not, and my wife, God bless her, she's my rock because she is the person that has brought balance in my life. Because if it wasn't for her, I'd be still head down and grunting it like crazy.
You'd be your dad.
I would be my dad. And there was nothing wrong with that.
No, but you'd be that version, right? Your dad sounds awesome, but he had a direction to how he was operating.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think, like I said, again, their lifestyle is different. So my wife has brought balance in my life where she's given me the opportunity to realize that you need to, balance, structure, you got kids, be involved in their life, be there for them, try to bring, and now I get the kids, oh, you were with my brother's coach, but you weren't my coach, and you were on the ice with him, and you got kicked out for mine, and it was things like that. So they razz me all the time because I'm Pete, and it's not Dad. Pete over there is always so I'm known as Pete for them, so it's pretty quite cool. People just look at us and he just call you Pete? And I'm like, yeah. Dad? No.
We're at a different spot.
It's totally different now. That's Pete. Pete's on a rant again. And so yeah. So I love what I do because I think that changing point when it happened, that it became something that now I'm building it.
Yeah.
Now it's a totally different game. Now I have to put my money where my mouth is. I've asked my dad to make these changes, and now I need to make sure that it operates today.
Yeah.
And without getting into a deeper conversation, because we only have so much time, but I could sit here all day and tell you stories. A lot of people, the part that I think I'm intrigued with, because I understand it today, no one knows you except for you, or the your deepest person that's in your life, the most significant person in your life. And that could be your partner in business, could be your wife, it could be your brother, it could be whoever it is, know you. But a lot of people don't, and they don't understand or comprehend what you've done to get where you are and what it takes to get where you are. And then when you are there and it might be successful, it sometimes is like, oh, he must be just rolling in it. They have no idea. I am still trying to figure it out, right? And my opportunities have gotten better as I've gotten older, not because I did something different. It's I understand more and have asked more questions, and people have given me answers. So I've started to ask the right questions to be able to say, okay, that makes sense, and absorb it and take it and still listen. And that's why I was saying to you before, I mean, I love listening to podcasts because everyone's got a different story. And when you think you know somebody, you're wrong.
Dude, amazing. Like it's that, just to like put a bow on this whole story with that, it's I find it's like the perfect way. It's the perfect way to articulate kind of what this is, right? This whole story arc, like people might look at you and be like, dude's crushing, he's living the life, doing all the things, but there's a long story behind this, and the story's not over.
It's not.
Like you're at a point in time, you might think, okay, whew, I'm here, good. But you're like, oh God, there's still another X amount of years. I got to figure this shit out.
I was telling you with my forum group, and I have conversations, and I have deep conversations with other people. And there's been a lot of people that have literally, that's one of the things, my wife gets mad at me all the time because she's like, why are you saying that? Why do you tell people that? And I'm like, people need to understand that we're not perfect.
Yeah.
We're not the Golden Globe, the people that are just shiny and bright. And it's like, oh my God, they're doing so great.
Yeah.
They need to know that we're human. We're just as civil. And we're just as different as, and just as they are. Yeah. They're probably going through the same struggles. But if I'm able to offer them an opportunity to see light that we're not perfect and we're not good, they might be thinking, oh, thank God I'm not the only one going through this process.
Dude, you imagine the stories I've heard in here, 194 in, right? And that's why when I was on you a little bit about the business plan thing, because as I hear a bunch of entrepreneurs talking about that specifically, like not having a formal education or whatever, that gives me hope, because it's like reinforces what I think and how I'm making my moves. So I think it is important for people to hear these stories, these different versions of how to do your thing.
I to this day, you can be whatever you want if you're willing to work for it. If you put in the effort, and success is based on what you believe. I don't give a shit what that person thinks if it's successful or not. If I'm happy with it and I'm successful at it and I love doing what I do, doesn't matter. Yeah. Right? You're meeting hundreds of people on a daily basis. We talked about having connections with some people that are willing to literally want to be here and listen to you and want to tell their story. That's incredible. Like like I said, I have people that have come to me, and I won't name any names, but there's some pretty predominant people in this city, and quite well off. And they're calling me going, I need you to fix my machine. And I'm like, can you send your son? And I'm like, okay, Are you going to be there? No, we'll just give you the codes to our home. Excuse me? And you're like, are you sure? Yeah, just go. It's a security gate, open it through, going in and out. Like, what is this? Like, that's how much you gain an element of people love what you do, know that you're honest enough, and you're just intrigued by it. And that's what I love about it. I meet many people that I've seen in this business that have started off, and we talked about some people that we've seen that when they just started out, and then today there's some people that are incredible. And I look at their journey and I think to myself, wow, good for them.
Yeah.
Good for them. But I don't know them. I have no idea how they got there, right? You think you know somebody, but you don't. You have no clue.
Thanks for doing this.
Thanks.
Really cool to meet you, man.
Yeah, thank you. This is awesome.
I end the show with one question. When I say Calgary, where's your head go?
I was always thinking about this one. So one thing I love about Calgary is a small community with a Beverly Hills budget. Hey?
It's good. I haven't heard that one.
I'm in and out, Alberta and Calgary, and this is my home. But it's crazy because we talked about how 3 degrees of separation. I know that guy through that guy through that guy. Everybody knows everybody. Everybody works with everybody. Everybody's really entrepreneurial here in Calgary.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it's like, holy, we need to have very shiny things all the time. And it's like, it's crazy. There's so many brilliant minds in the city of Calgary. I find it hard to understand why we aren't on top of the world compared to others. I travel around to other places and I see places and I'm like, you're getting away with that? Really? Yeah, that's Calgary's, home for me for sure.
Thanks again for doing this.
Thank you.
I'm very proud to be like working my way into this like Italian culture in the city. Like it's not lost on me.
Good.
The cool. There's a small crew of you that I've had the pleasure of meeting now, so it's been really fun for me to kind of just like hear it, because I do think there's like the Italian roots in this city are very deep, and it's not lost to me that I get the privilege to hear these stories. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This is awesome.